Leitner puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
Welcome back to the Culture State Podcast. We are here. It is a beautiful day in North Carolina, and we have to talk about one of the more famous tag teams has ever come out of this state. I am Chris Lee.
And I'm Dennis Cox. And Chris, you're talking about the Hardy Boys, the pride of Cameron, North Carolina.
Yep, absolutely. I remember when those guys first came out, before they did the muscle shirts, and they came out with the shiny belts and things like that, and doing the flips. They were basically kind of like the jobbers on WWE for a little bit. They were the extra talent. They had the plaid gear, where they had the plaid gear, and it would be the Hardy Boys or whatever. And I remember they said Cameron, North Carolina. I'm like, okay, these guys are from North Carolina. And it just really made me interested in who they were. And so that is something that, I followed them for such a long time. They have changed. I think anybody that's watched wrestling within the last 30 years has loved a Hardy Boys match at some point.
They're so influential, not only in the way that wrestling was shaped. For example, WWE has a pay-per-view called TLC, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. The Hardy Boys were instrumental in that, making it, because it was them, Edge and Christian, as well as the Dudleys, that basically created that match, and it's still used to this day. They're the ones who set the standards, set the bar high. Still, some of the most iconic images from TLC matches include Matt and Jeff Hardy. And if you're not a WWE wrestling fan, you like the quote unquote just the independent stuff because you don't like the quote unquote mainstream. Well, then you've seen them in Ring of Honor doing ladder matches against guys like the Young Bucks. But people just that were wrestling fans in the late 90s, early 2000s would just dress like Matt and Jeff Hardy. It's like, oh, you're Hardy Boy fans, just because of how they would dress at school. So the cultural impact that these guys have had.
Absolutely. Man, it's always great to see. And then for me on my end, becoming a pro wrestler, I was able to work with them on a couple of shows, which was cool. And then also the guy who trained me, Trevor Lee, who's known as Cameron Grimes, in WWE and on the NXT brand right now. He grew up literally in the ring with the Hardy Boys. Matt Hardy will talk about that in the show. And, literally his life is wrestling, and that's all he's ever really known. And so when I found out, I think it was maybe 2 months into me training, I knew he was from Cameron, North Carolina. And I was like, hey, when you guys are in Cameron, do you ever run into the Hardy Boys? And he just kind of did a little laugh, and he's like, that's who trained me. I was like, oh, okay. So they trained you trained me. That means, I'm in the tree.
Look at that. Chris Lee got his training basically from the Hardys. See, you are part of the Hardy family office.
I'm in the tree.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a branch.
You're a branch. Hey, you're in the family. You're in the family tree. Now, me being associated with you, I'm like I'm part of it, I guess.
You're a leaf.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bright and wonderful.
Just flowing in the wind. There.
Exactly. That's basically how my life is. Just float in the wind, wherever it takes me. That's pretty amazing how not only did they have impact basically on your wrestling career, but just the wrestling careers of so many people. Like you said, training Cameron Grimes, who's in NXT, and just so many other people in the independent wrestling scene that they came up with. Hurricane Shane Helms, who was the first guest of the Culture State podcast, he worked with the Hardys for years before he got to WCW.
And there was a huge, and we talked about this as well, a huge influx of North Carolina stars that he grew up with that were wrestling at the time that influenced the new North Carolina stars that are coming up now. So, hey, let's not wait anymore. Matt Hardy. I can't believe we did it too, man. Matt Hardy right here on the Culture State podcast. After this. All right. So, of course, we have to celebrate North Carolina on the Culture State podcast. And who better to bring on than Matt Hardy? Of course, a lot of us, if you watch professional wrestling, A lot of your favorite memories come from Hardy Boys matches. And then I know when I was young, hearing from Cameron, North Carolina, it just made me hype because it was the first time that somebody I would say from my generation was from North Carolina, and it was really exciting from there. It was always cool to hear about Ric Flair. He's amazing, but in my prime time growing up, it was about the Hardy Boys. So now we have Matt Hardy on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, man, I'm very happy to be here. And speaking on that, what you were saying about being hyped to hear two guys being announced from North Carolina, I think myself and my brother, when we first burst onto the scene, especially for people in North Carolina, myself and my brother, we weren't millionaires or playboys like Ric Flair. We were much more attainable. Two kids were just chasing a dream that were crazy, that didn't care what people thought, and were willing to go out and do anything to win a match. I feel like a lot more people related to us. So that's very cool that you did, and it's very cool that so many people did. They really embraced myself and my brother when we first broke onto the scene.
You guys had me wearing muscle shirts when I was in 7th grade with no muscles, like and the sparkly belts and the big pants and all that. Like, yeah, I'm just going with my Hardy Boys look for today.
See, I was wearing muscle shirts and I barely had any muscles. I mean, when we first came in, the industry was full of guys that were 6'8", 350, 400 pounds, and that's when things started changing so much around that time when myself and my brother and Edge and Christian, Shawn Michaels did a lot to help guys our size too, smaller guys, and wrestling kind of geared towards more athleticism, and actually putting on a super entertaining athletic match as opposed to older guys who were kind of like slow and plodding and just like big muscled up beef heads.
Well, I did want to ask you about that. I guess we can start from there. You guys, started off with Omega early, and I remember just getting those tapes as a kid and, seeing the types of things you guys are doing as you guys, Shannon Moore, guys like Champagne and Mike Maverick, and, just so many of those guys, that circle of North Carolina that really, was really bubbling at that time. What about your ingenuity at that point was like, what, if I'm not going to get on the shows, I'm going to make the show myself. And you guys just put it out there just so you could, have that audience.
Dude, that was 100% the mentality behind it, especially for me, because we weren't officially trained, and we started working for the Italian Stallion and George South a little bit. And that was all free acts. If we would do their shows on Fridays and Saturdays, no matter where they were, if it was North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, wherever it was, we would drive to it, we'd do their shows, but they would take us to WWE to be extras. And that was like, that was our dream, to eventually make it in this business to a major company and be stars on that level, on a global level. So when we didn't have enough bookings that were coming through and we didn't know other people, we had no contacts, just my brother and I, we didn't have anybody in the business. We didn't know anyone in the business. We just literally were chasing our dream. I said, well, if we can't be booked on more shows, I'll actually do shows, So I got a little taste of the whole booking aspect as far as booking venues and booking shows and booking talent. So that was a great learning experience for me. And that is the initial reason I started running shows underneath the Omega banner. And speaking of these things, did you know, I'm pretty sure I invented the AEW wrestling style in Omega. Matt Hardy is responsible for a lot of things. That's the style we were doing back then. And a lot of people said, what are you guys doing? You're doing way too much. You guys got to slow down, work a hold, brother, and do all that. But, we kept the intensity up. So I think another notch in my belt is I created the All Elite wrestling style, the style that lives on in 2021 right now.
I'll back that up. I have some Omega tapes from back in the day, VHS tapes. I'll back that up for sure.
What was it like, Matt, wrestling in the independent scene before making it to WWF at the time? What was it like working the independent wrestling scene in North Carolina?
It was interesting. There were a lot of people that were on the independent scene at that level that still worked like what I would almost describe as like an old school style or an 80s style. And a lot of people really made an effort to slow myself and my brother down. In a lot of ways that was good, because that helped us know how to work in more than one way, because we were really going, full throttle, 100% straight ahead whenever our style initially in Omega and whatnot. So we worked with guys who slowed us down. They talked about working a body part or even working the left side. One of the very first matches I had for the Italian Stallion in 1993, a guy just told me, he was like calling a match. He said, grab a headlock. And I couldn't even do it backwards now. I grabbed a headlock with my right arm. And the guy said, what are you, Mark? And he suplexed me on my head. right out of it. But just like the little bits and pieces of psychology, like learning that, like work the left side, whatever it may be. We picked up so much of that during our journeys and our trials in the independent scene before ever signing with WWE, which I think helped us get ready for WWE in a much better way.
I think one of the things that is also cool about WWE is you guys' time there is that you really were something new for the time, and
Right.
I don't. How does it feel when you look at the different organizations and you see people who pretty much are direct descendants of what you and your brother kind of started when it comes down to the style of professional wrestling? Is it something that makes you proud of? You feel like you've left your mark on professional wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, you're very obviously referencing the Young Bucks, right?
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Nothing sacred.
There are others.
Took our whole act, our tights, our tassels, everything.
The Bucks of youth,
there
yes.
are others, but of course, Young Bucks are come to mind.
Right. No, man. I mean, it's very humbling. It really is, and it's so cool that we took a big chance on rolling the dice whenever we were being rebranded and put with Michael Hayes, and we broke out the kickwear pants and the tight shirts, and we took a chance on that. We thought it would be something trendy, something new, and they gave us the opportunity to do it, and it worked out. And it was so many independent promoters were mad at me. They said, "Oh my God, you Hardy Boys, you go out and you wear these pants and these shirts. Now anybody thinks they can be a wrestler. All they got to do is go get a pair of kickwear pants and a tight shirt. Now they're a wrestler because the Hardy Boys wear it on global television." So it's very cool that people copied our style and that people emulated the things we did. And we were so fortunate to get the opportunity to do the tag team ladder match with Edge and Christian, my damn longtime rival Christian Cage, who I'm still beefing with now. We had the opportunity to do that tag team ladder match, and it was a game changer for us. That is truly the match that made us all wrestling superstars. And then from there, we did the tables match with the Dudleys, and then the TLC match happened, and then we kind of became a staple of the pro wrestling industry. TLC is a match that is like a set match that always happens. It's a self-standing pay-per-view. So it's very cool that we get to be innovative in that way, and that legacy lives on from all of us. And that's the stuff myself and my brother we were doing Surge, Matt Hardy versus Will-O-the-Wisp, Jeff Hardy on Omega shows in ladder matches all the time. So it's very cool that we got the opportunity to do that and leave our mark on the industry. And now AEW is so special because Tony Khan is so on the pulse of wrestling and wrestling fans, because he's the biggest fan of them all at his heart, and he knows what he would love to see, the kind of style he'd like to see in 2021, and he really does a great job at catering to those fans. And we have such a massive roster. I love that every week you watch Dynamite, it seems like a different show. Sometimes nowadays when you're watching a WWE program, it seems like you're kind of seeing almost like you're revisiting the last week. It seems so similar in so many ways and so formulaic. I love how AEW Dynamite seems different and fresh every single week. And there's so many different guys that can go on in that last slot as the main event and still hold up. So it's very cool, and I'm very proud of the whole movement that AEW is creating. And I'm also very proud of Tony Khan for taking this risk and it paying off and being a success. And I believe in the vision of Tony Khan in AEW.
I got a question about your wrestling personas, Matt. I mean, obviously what you're doing now with the Hardy family office, actually, Chris and I have a proposal for you later on regarding that. But the way you all have come up with, through Omega and, with the muscle shirts and then, broken Matt Hardy, how have you continued to find ways to be creative and innovative in this business and continue to evolve? Whereas, unfortunately, there are some personas out there that just grow stale after a while and they never grow.
Yeah, I mean, early on, I always felt like you have to change, because like any TV show, regardless of how great the TV show is, if it goes on too long, it kind of gets stale and it runs out of content or new ideas. I'm so happy Dexter's coming back. I was just talking about that with my buddy this morning. Like, I feel like they had 8 seasons, and towards the end, they almost ran out of material. So it kind of got stale, and they kind of ended up throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And now they're coming back with a new kind of freshly branded series to try and go out on a strong note. I always felt like you've always got to change, because sure, Matt Hardy is going to be Matt Hardy when it's all said and done. He's going to kind of do the same moves and kind of wrestle the same way. But if you can change your character and your personality, you can keep it fresh. And that's been my mentality. I was so happy when I broke away from my brother, my brother, Jeff Hardy, really epitomizes the Hardy Boys. He really is like absolutely fearless when it comes to taking chances or jumping off high objects or any perch available, going through tables and whatnot. I mean, he is the epitome of the Hardy Boy. Me, not as much. When I was Matt Hardy version 1, the Sensei of Mattitude, I was over the top. I was delusional, like I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I feel like I'm really good in that role and comfortable in that role. And anytime I can do something close to that, it's very cool. Broken Matt was fun. I was inspired to do Broken Matt just because I started watching television shows once I stepped away from being a full-time performer, being on the road 10 days on and 4 days off. So that was fun as well. But I feel like you have to constantly update yourself and change what you're doing to remain fresh. And that way you never go stale if you do that. But you have to change. And you have to be fearless in a creative sense where you're willing to think outside the box and also step out and take chances. And I feel like my brother is fearless from a physical aspect. I feel like I am fearless from a creative aspect.
It's interesting when you brought up the different, characters that you guys were beforehand with Surge and Will-O-the-Wisp. I don't remember if Surge was on the show, but I do remember I went to a show when I was like 10. It was the first, independent show I've ever been to. Before that, it was only WCW. And then I go and there's this guy with a mask and his name was Will-O-the-Wisp. And I just remember just being in awe of what he did. And then fast forward a couple of years later, you guys are in WWE and I'm reading up more on you guys. And then that's when I'm starting to try to learn more about Omega and things like that. And then I hear Will-O-the-Wisp was like, wait a minute, I saw that guy 2 years ago. Didn't realize, in Greensboro at Grimsley High School, didn't realize that was Jeff Hardy. So it was really cool to see that.
Right.
And to know that I had a chance to see at least him independently. But I also want to ask about the independence at that time and just as far as the different people coming out and all the talent that's here. I felt like I was blessed with the maybe 3-4 years I was in wrestling, trained by Trevor Lee, being able to be around guys like Andrew Everett and guys like that who are really doing some really good work. No Way Jose, who was of course at CWF at that time.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you about just that time. Like you guys had a lot of people, that were really coming up on the scene. Shannon Moore, who ended up being big parts of wrestling, WCW, ECW, WWE. What was it like you guys all kind of growing up together and becoming big stars together as you guys are learning to become good professional wrestlers?
I feel like that's one of the coolest things about like the Omega Powers. That's kind of what we roughly called our group. Myself and my brother and Shannon Moore, we literally grew up 3 miles apart from one another. And then Shane Helms and Mike Howe, they were about an hour away. Caprice Coleman is a guy that later on I trained. He was from 20 minutes away. We had such a amazing core group that was just there. Joy Abs, Jason Art, Venom in Omega. He was 15 minutes away. So to be with these guys that we were all legitimately friends with and be able to, have this undertaking of exploring independent wrestling and really everyone had this goal. We all wanted to make it. We all had this dream of wrestling on the highest levels, signing a contract and making all of us, we all wanted to make it our career. And we were all able to do that in some capacity, and I still think about it like myself, I'm so blessed to still be doing this. In October, it'll be 29 years since my first match.
Wow.
I mean, that's just like, I'm just so blessed with such a long run and also so much health along the way, especially with all the insanity we did the first 10, 15 years of my career. I mean, we didn't take like typical bumps. I mean, we did so many bumps that were just insane and crazy. So to make that journey with your friends is not only special on that level of that it's your friends, it's also people that you trust. And it's also like someone you're in business with and they're not going to screw you over. They know, that they have your back. So it makes it all the more special. And we were such a tight-knit group and everyone had the same goal. We're all a little different. We have different characters or personas, but we all had the same goal at the end of the day. So I feel like we really worked hard. It was a team effort. And I think that helped everyone in our group succeed.
What are your thoughts on the new generation of North Carolina wrestlers? You have Cameron Grimes, of course, and then you have, of course, Andrew Everett. Cedric Alexander doing his thing in WWE. Griff Garrison, coming out of AEW as well. Like, what are your FTR? What are your thoughts on just the new generation of North Carolina wrestlers?
They're all great. I was there when Cameron Grimes, when Trevor was born. I remember him being a baby crawling around in our workout ring. It was his dad, Tracy Goodell. Him and we are the people that started ECWF initially in '93, which would ultimately become Omega when it was all said and done. So I think all these guys are great. And FTR, I'm very proud of them. I love how they're a throwback to like an old school tag team, but they still work a modern style. They're a very sneaky act because they do work an old school style, but they can do all the new stuff as well. Yeah. So I'm proud of all these guys. Cedric's killing it. Andrew Everett is extremely talented. I love that Cameron Grimes, Trevor Goodell has got a great opportunity to succeed. And I think FTR is truly one of the best tag teams in the world. I wish myself and my brother would have got to have a better run with it. Maybe one day down the road we will. But I'm proud of this new generation. I hope they keep making North Carolina proud.
Now, talking about the current generation, but North Carolina has that deep, rich history going back, obviously, the days with the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. Yep. Just in general, what makes wrestling in North Carolina special?
I feel like North Carolina is like, it is in the South, but it is also, it doesn't have that rep, or it doesn't have that. Sometimes people say the South, they're a little less intelligent than people in the North or whatever it may be. I feel like North Carolina is still on the up and up, but we still love wrestling. We still have a great respect for wrestling. And tomorrow night here in Charlotte, this crowd is going to be going crazy. I'm sure everybody on AEW, and the show is just so cool, so trendy, they're going to work everyone into a frenzy. I feel like North Carolina is still one of those states that is special because it has a very great respect for old school wrestling, especially based in the Jim Crockett promotion that was found a great home here and did so many amazing events over the years. But it also has a great respect for the new style of wrestling, which is AEW. I mean, I am fully convinced that AEW and the style and the way we perform here is the wave of the future. You can't change my mind. I mean, I believe that. I saw this was going to be the style years and years and years ago, and now there's a company that is really come to fruition that is doing this style. So with North Carolina, I think it's cool because we're very intellectual wrestling fans, but we also like to play along as far as that goes. And it's different than other places. Sometimes in the Northeast, they're very intellectual wrestling fans, but they almost treat their wrestling like they're elitist. Like, well, we know what's going on. We're a little too good for this. We're just going to sit here and we're going to wait. That's what I love about North Carolina. They're very fair, good, solid fans.
I wanted to ask you about sports. Were you fans of any sports, basketball, football? Are you a NC State, Carolina, Duke fan? Like, what is that growing up for you? And what type of other sports kind of influenced you and your brother?
I'm a UNC fan, man. I am. Okay. I went to UNC Charlotte for a couple years, and when I was growing up, Jordan was my guy, man. Jordan was heavily influential in myself and my brother. So I think he's the one that really sold us on being UNC fans. Dean Smith and just UNC was just so iconic over the years. And considering I was in the system and at UNC Charlotte for a couple of years, they're my team. And I love following them basketball more than anything else.
Okay. What do you think about Hugh Davis being the next coach?
I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting. I hope he does well. I hope he can continue the legacy.
Have you ever had a chance to actually get out to a game at the Smith Center, like Duke, Carolina? Have you ever got a chance to actually go to those matchups?
I have. I've been to a couple. It was real cool. Maybe 4 years ago, back when we were in Impact and TNA, myself and Jeff went with our friend Hermie Sadler, who's a big UNC fan as well. And we went backstage and met with the team, and a bunch of the guys wanted to take photos and whatnot, and everybody was throwing up their version 1s and their guns. So it was very cool, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about just the tour of different organizations you and your brother have been on. You guys won, championships all over the place, and you've been able to kind of put your stamp on all these different places. He hasn't been at AEW yet, But I do want to ask about just that. When everything is all said and done, and you can look back and you can say that you've touched WWE and Ring of Honor and TNA and then also AEW and all that. How proud does that make you as a kid who, like you said, you weren't even officially trained? This was just a job that you really wanted to have at some point, and you just worked to get better. You would have touched everything. How does that make you feel?
It makes me extremely proud. I'm very proud of the career I've had, and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm here at AEW and I'm still able to do what I love. Pro wrestling is my passion. I'm still able to get in the ring, and Tony has been so smart about the way he's utilized me and build me up for bigger matches, and I think it's perfect. And then on top of that, I get to head up the HFO, where there are some young guys who have a ton of potential, and I can give them insight into things I think they might could do or tweak to help make their act better. Like Private Party, I love them, and I'm so proud of their growth, especially over the last 6 or 8 months. Just the way they've turned up the intensity as far as being heels, and the way they've kind of relinquished their fear of being an asshole, which is very important if you're a heel in this day and age, because we live in a day and age where social media is out there, and in society it's like everyone wants to be beloved, everyone wants to be popular. They feel like they to be adequate, they need to be accepted. But being a bad guy in pro wrestling in this day and age, you have to remember you can't care about that because your whole job is to go out there and try and aggravate people, where you want to see whoever the good guy is in the story beat you up. And they've done a great job of doing that. And that's something I enjoy. And I feel like being an older guy, because the AEW demographic really is younger. I can tell a huge difference between the AEW demographic and, say, the WWE demographic. It's much older, and they have they're much more accepting of someone who is an older act and maybe not as physically great athletically as they used to be. But AEW is a little more rough on those acts. So being a heel here is the perfect role and the perfect setting for me. So more or less, it's I'm happy to be at AEW, and I feel like even after I'm done in ring and managing, I feel like there's a lot of great roles for me behind the scenes where I can continue to help the talent that I'm helping now and even help more going forward.
Chris and I, Matt, we have a proposal that Culture State be the official podcast of the Hardy Family Office. Now, we understand 30%.
Yeah.
You take 30% of everything, which is fine. You help us make money. You make money. We're all in on it. It's just a wee fee. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And we're 100% behind it. You help us make money. We'll be the official podcast of the HFO.
I like that. I'm gonna have my fleet of attorneys send over the paperwork to your attorney, and we'll try and make this work. It's only 30%. It's a wee fee, but on top of that, you're gonna get to spend time with the iconic Big Money Matt Hardy. You're gonna get to pick my brain. You're going to get to hang out with AEW superstars. It sounds like a good deal for you guys.
Hey, send the papers my way. I'm going to be at the show in Charlotte tomorrow, so send the papers my way. I'll hand them directly to you, Matt.
Here's something else.
We'll
Here's something else we have to let them know about, though. Like, Dennis, you have a niece. She's 3 years old. I have a daughter who's 4, and my daughter's starting to get into pro wrestling now. I mean, that could be a tag team of the future. And maybe you can have your hands on them very early. I mean, hey, maybe even, congratulations on your daughter being born just recently.
Thank you.
Maybe they can end up all, tagging together at some point. Maybe we can make a little women's Omega from the little girls.
Yeah, I like it. I'll go ahead and lock your kids down. I mean, considering inflation is prices go up, we'll probably lock them down for 50%. Because by the time they're ready, it's still going to be a wee fee. They'll be making so much money. With my kids, I'm pretty excited about it. Until they're 18, I get 100% of all of them. So I'm going to work them really hard. King Maxwell's still undefeated, so there's a lot of equity in his name.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're definitely building the new Hardy, I guess dynasty right now. So it's going to be awesome to see them as they get older.
Indeed.
So thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you again. And I know AEW is going to be amazing tomorrow night. At Bojangles Coliseum down in Charlotte. I had a chance to go when they were in Charlotte at the end of 2019. Oh, yeah. Definitely a fun time. How can people get the tickets?
At AEWtix.com. And one thing I was going to say, you better jump on it quick. There are only, this is legitimately, this is a legitimate statement I'm making. There's only a few hundred tickets left. So
okay.
it will sell out. So you guys jump on it, get your tickets, and I promise you, it's going to be the hottest ticket in town, and it is going to be the best wrestling show you've ever been to. Tomorrow night is a magnificent lineup for AEW Dynamite. So many unpredictables going on. I mean, can you believe Chris Jericho is wrestling Nick Gage tomorrow night?
It's crazy.
Wild.
It's crazy.
I was shocked. I was shocked. You know, they shocked Big Money Matt. That's an accomplishment in this day and age. You know, so there's so many great things. I'm leading my HFO out there against that old, washed up, no good for nothing Christian Cage, my mortal enemy, him, Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus. I mean, just from top to bottom, it's a stacked card. FTR representing North Carolina, taking on Proud and Powerful. It's going to be a hell of a show. And then on top of that, you're also going to see some Elevation and Dark tapings. I mean, you'll see probably 3.5, 4 hours of just nonstop wrestling action. The best wrestling in the world right now.
Absolutely, AEW, and you can catch it every Wednesday night. If you can't actually go to the event in Charlotte, catch it every Wednesday night on TNT, 8 o'clock. You can see Matt Hardy and his Hardy Family Office, and everybody else is there. It's definitely a fun time, and it's a fun watch. To me, it's made wrestling fun again. So I really appreciate AEW for sure.
And on top of that, it's not just you guys saying that. It's been the #1 television on Wednesday night cable for the last 2 weeks, which is huge. That's huge, man.
Absolutely. Much luck and much success to you. But you've had so much success anyway. I know that you're just gonna keep going. So
you got it, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
What a pleasure chatting with you today.
Pleasure is ours, Matt.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hopefully, we get a chance to have you and Jeff together at some point together as well. So
yeah, no doubt about it. That would be an absolute dream in my book.
Yeah. We'll stay in contact. So.
You got it. And we're going to work on it. And I'm going to try and give you guys 30%. I mean, I think we can cut it down to 30. Only a wee fee.
Just wee fee at 30%? That's fine. Yeah, it works perfectly.
Delightful.
Yes, sir. Good to see you, man.
You guys
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Dennis, what are your impressions?
That was awesome. That was, no, seriously, it's just, obviously we try and keep it professional here, but we're also fans, you and I. So the fact that we get to have the conversation with, I remember someone I was watching when we were in middle school, watching this guy and his brother and just Edge Christian, all those guys just do the wild and crazy things that they did, and just how captivating it was to watch them in the ring, and finally have the chance to have the conversation with them and still being relevant in the wrestling world. I think it's phenomenal to see how he's continued to evolve and reinvent himself continuously throughout the years. And it was truly a joy and a pleasure to have that conversation with Matt Hardy, because he's one of the reasons why I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah, absolutely. He's him and his brother definitely, and I can't wait till we get Jeff Hardy on the show together with him. But him and his brother are really grew a whole generation of wrestling fans, and honestly, for as popular as they are, I really don't think they get as the flowers that they really truly deserve. They truly deserve. Those guys are literally walking legends.
Yeah.
There's so much that those guys have done, and so much they have contributed. And we can say that they came from right here in North Carolina, in a little small town called Cameron in Moore County. When we think about Moore County, we think about golf and Pinehurst.
Yeah.
But you could also think about some of the best wrestlers ever to come out of Moore County.
I know we didn't touch on this with Matt, but with one of his gimmicks, especially the broken Matt Hardy gimmick, they actually filmed a lot of the vignettes that you saw on TNA, even stuff that was used in WWE, even in AEW, stuff that was actually filmed in Cameron at the Hardy family compound. His house has been featured on all these major promotions, on pay-per-views, and it's just filmed, 30, 35 minutes from where you and I are right now in Raleigh. Yeah. It's amazing how that's just filmed right down the road, and how he's able to use his hometown as part of that. And we talk about putting North Carolina on the map. People are literally seeing it when they see Matt Hardy.
I don't think I've ever told you this before.
Tell me.
So one of the things that they filmed for TNA at his house the Hardy family compound.
Yeah.
I was asked if I could be a part of it. They needed like somebody to pretend like there was a news crew reporting on what was there. The night that they were filming, I tried to get off of work. I couldn't get off of work. And this is when I was back in Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it weren't for that, I possibly could have been on there. There's the scribe, who's my man, Brad Stutz, who was the guy who's booking CWF. He's the heavyset guy that's on some of those.
Okay.
That's my man. He was the one who asked me if I could come down. And there's so many different guys who are from North Carolina who are featured in that. And that's one of the things I think is cool, is that he gives nods to a lot of different people who you know are there. And I look on there and I see my friends who are there. And that was really cool. So if WXI would have let me off of work that one time, I possibly could have been in one of those, but you know.
That would have been awesome. That would have just made your career. But like, oh, you just put that on your reel, man. Put that on your highlight reel. Right. Like, oh, who's that guy?
Yeah.
People would have wondered, hey, who's that guy? Who's that news guy?
Literally could have put that on my news reel for like.
Yeah, literally. Literally could have put that on your news reel.
Like,
man.
What? You did this?
That would have been awesome, man. That's so cool. Well, unfortunately it didn't happen. But hey, here you are now, still getting to talk to Matt Hardy today. And
I mean, he said he trained my daughter, so.
Yeah, and he's going to train my niece, and we're going to be the official podcast of the Hardy family office. He's going to send us the contract. We're going to sign it. I'm going to see him at the AEW show in Charlotte, and I'm going to hand it directly to him. We're going to give him 30% of what we make, but we're going to make money because of him.
Exactly. Hold on. I'm just ready. This is my pen.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready to sign.
Let's do it.
We're going to be there, and it's just a wee fee.
Just
a wee fee.
Wee fee. That's it.
It's not a wee fee. It's literally just free. The Culture State podcast.
Yes.
Please give us 5 stars. We absolutely will love it. I mean, that is the weest of wee fees. It's free.
Yeah, it's free.
Just give us 5 stars. It's just free.
Wherever you get your podcast, we're there.
We'll give you a hug in exchange if we ever see you out in person.
Hey, if you see me in Charlotte, Bojangles Coliseum, come give me a hug. I'll say what's up.
If you see him with a beer in his hand, mind your business.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today.
Thank you guys for listening to the Culture State podcast. We're back next week with another great episode. We'll see you then.
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up.
The Culture State podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WRAL Sports Fan app.